out of that corner. And so the ushers are ready to take the plates back, and suddenly Gary goes, "No, wait a minute." And he looked over all the people, he got up and just addressed them as if they were a whole different group. He said, "You know, this is really important, this mission partner stuff, and you guys got to give more." Well, what are you going to do? If you're in that corner, they just started digging a little deep and started to realize, and they sent the plates around again. And then they brought them forward. That's a tradition that we ought to do more of. See, I noticed there's only 2 congregations getting this offering at Thanksgiving, and I thought if we could just send her through one more time. Possibility. Think about it for tomorrow. Okay. Well, we had, you know, with the ecumenical relations, we heard about the community Lenten services. I remember when I was here, Don Greer was here at the Methodist Church. Stan Boughton was at the Presbyterian Church. And of course, Stan was a long time veteran. He had so much sense. And the year he was here, we had such good common sense, straight, good Lenten services. But then Stan left, and then Don and I were on our own. And boy, you folks remember those, don't you? We had those little plays and all kinds of stuff. And then I went into the hospital. I had some kind of a virus, but they put me in the psych ward. They just assumed, I guess. It's really interesting, Dorothy. I never got any flowers. And I told everybody. This time's changed. I remember the ecumenical relations, though, and the ecumenical relations have been significant for me. And significant in the sense that of what's happened now in this congregation I'm in. Because when I left here to go to a little town in northern Colorado. It's a little intimate little village of about 100,000 people. And I went in there and I was going to start a new congregation. I knew there were 5 members walking in. We have 3 kids. And I knew there were 5 of us. And I was hoping there would at least be 5 in the first few months. And so I started knocking on doors. What that's led to at this point is that we're in the process of going through some building plans now during this fall. We'll be doing that. We'll be looking at different options. It's going to be a pretty inexpensive structure, really. I think our total loan, they estimate it'll probably not be over $750,000, so it's going to be a pretty small venture, really. But that's where we're at. And so, but the ecumenical relations are that we've been worshiping in a school there for about 4 years. And last January, we had a meeting talking about future building plans for this congregation and so what should we do and what's the process, and we need to go through a capital fund drive and do all that stuff. And so we're in the process of doing that. And somebody brings up and says, you know, we limit ourselves in not being creative. We're not creative enough in the church. And we ought to come up with some new ideas. We're a group that can do about anything we want to do. And I said amen to that. I said, sure, why not? And so we started talking about some ideas, and the pastor of a congregation that's only about a quarter mile from where we're at, it's a brand new, small structure. It's only about 3-4 years old. They're a Presbyterian, by the way. He and I had been talking earlier on in the week, and I said, you know, Larry, his name's Larry. I said, Larry, you know what would really work is if we would use your church. Now we wouldn't have to be in school anymore. Larry says, you know, that's a good idea. That's a real good idea. So we talked, and when we talked, we got really carried away, and we started figuring out all kinds of elaborate plans and this kind of stuff. Well, at that meeting, I had mentioned it to the president of our council, and the president happened to mention to the group, he says, you know, there is a discussion going on in the community that we could perhaps have worship at the Harmony Presbyterian Church. Only that we would have worship on Saturday night, and they would have church on Sunday. What's that sound like to you? Same way it sounded to the people who heard it. They're going, what? Are we getting kicked out of the school? I mean, what's happening? So they started thinking about it. And lo and behold, that started to grow in our minds. But you see, the key in it is what happens to Sunday. what a Sunday becomes if you worship on Saturday night. So we had to talk about that. We had to discuss about that. And all of a sudden we realized that you can do mission on Sunday. You see, there's no conflicts on Sunday in our part of the country. And believe me, there are plenty of conflicts. I mean, some people think that God calls them to the mountain every weekend. And most of them go. And so we got to keep the people there. And so what happened was we gathered this out, and in fact, but just an hour ago, that group of folk back there at Fort Collins just got done with worship. They just got done. And they're done now. Now that sounds okay, doesn't it? They're done. But tomorrow is not another Saturday. Tomorrow's a day of mission. Tomorrow they need to do something with their families, which they don't get very much time to do. Tomorrow they need to do something for their neighbor if they haven't. Tomorrow they're going to be encouraged to go and visit other congregations, like they are every week. That's what goes on. But ecumenical relations don't just pop into your head. When I was in this congregation, when we did all those community services, it just only made sense that we should do things together. It only made sense. It appeared almost Christ-like. Right? Almost. In fact, it was. Now we're in that relationship. Who knows where that might go? Who knows? The bishop accused me that I wanted to play golf on Sunday morning. And I said, no, that's not true. Maybe once in a while, but not every week. Not every week. That's where we come from. What I want to share with you, my memories of this congregation are joy-filled. They are. I remember when I left Tom, I remember Coach Cook, he came up to me and said, boy, am I glad you're leaving now. And I said, well, Ken, thanks. You know, I appreciate that kind of support. He said, we haven't won a state championship in anything since you've been here. I think it was the next year. You won one. And what is that guy? Prophet or what? But I remember going all across the countryside, going to games. First time around was always fun. You know, if you don't know where Table Rock is, and you get in a car with somebody and they're taking you to a game, you know, you think you're just about going to the end of the earth down in there. And then suddenly there you are. And I remember once, Russ Grunewald's going to remember this. I remember he was the quarterback. Russ, the only guy I knew that often went the wrong way, but that's okay. I won't talk about that. I remember one time I went to Table Rock, it was so muddy on the field that they only played half the field. Anybody remember that game? So you couldn't run into the mud end because it was just too muddy. But what they did was once in a while, these guys from Adams who are ruthless when they play football, as you all know, they'd intercept the pass and run into the mud end. Just to run into the mud end, I think. You know? That's the kind of stuff that went on. But I remember going all over on these trips and going all over the countryside, it seemed like. And when I was going back across today, I remember we went by Sydney. I remember the stories of you when you went to Sydney. And I remember all those kinds of towns that we went to, and you people tell me the stories about. But the part of those stories that are always significant is just what Ray said, is that notion of fellowship. You see, you can't develop a good attitude in a church unless the people like each other, unless the people rub shoulders together and break bread together. That's what this congregation is known for. You talk about mission, it only makes sense. The people that care about each other would care about the world. That's exciting. That's what your history has been. And I believe and I trust that the future for this congregation is going to be but applause today and tomorrow. To continue to focus on what God has for you to do, what God has in store for you as opportunities and possibilities. These two congregations are going to be blessed by you. They're going to be strengthened by you in ways you're never going to imagine. You people have opportunity to be examples of Christ-like beings in a way that there's other people could only but dream. You people can be the examples of that. You were when I was in your midst. You are now. And the future is only but there for you. That's what I remember. Thank you.